Welcome to the Daily B Show with Matty B, episode 90 with Michael Lauria. I think that's how you say his last name. A nice little roll to it. So Michael reached out to me just recently. He is a coach, life coach. He's a transformational coach. He's been working with men mostly recently, and he's got a new book coming out as well, which is super exciting. And he's going to be joining us today to get down deep with a few different topics. We've had a really good chat the other day, and I liked where it went. So I feel like this discussion today is going to be just the same, very deep, very thought-provoking, and it's going to, hey guys, and it's going to be rather stimulating, well, for me at least. So been looking forward to catching up with Michael for a couple of weeks now, and the time is.
Hey, Matt.
How are we?
Good, man. Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. How about you? We got
beautiful. Yeah, same, mate. Probably a bit loud, so I'm going to turn you down just a little bit.
You're not the first person to tell me that. Mate, cool, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm
thanks for connecting as well.
Awesome, man. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, cheers, man. Me too. Super fun. So, mate, start by introducing who you are and a little bit about what you're doing at the moment for yourself.
Yeah, cool. All right, no worries. So my name is Michael. I'm a men's mentor relationship coach. And I'm really, what I've been doing over the last couple of years really is focusing more on men, and in context of this conversation. So what this is all about really is what I've been doing is focusing on our, what I believe is a very toxic, success-driven society, and then the effect that that's actually having on men. So when you sort of combine that toxicity of that success-driven society that we live in, plus you add to it the Me Too movement, and you add things like toxic masculinity to the mix, it's absolutely no wonder that we have a generation of men who are bringing up a new generation of boys who are just utterly and totally confused about what it means to be a man and what it means to be a leader in this world and what masculinity even means. So that's the body of my work. I mean, it's when I talk about I've been doing this for the last 2 years, I've actually been working with men for a good 15 years as individuals, and also in the context of relationships too. So I've seen this evolution over the last 15 years or so of how we've gone from sort of that healthy, strong masculine into a very kind of uncertain masculine, where a lot of guys really just don't even know how to be a man in today's society.
Yeah, and that really ties in well with the journey that I'm on and about to embark with my beautiful friend Samantha Moyer, where there is just an epidemic of mental health and domestic violence and addictions, and just ruined mentally, because people just do have such a high state of confusion and trying to fill those gaps and those voids with all these just unproductive, unsupportive, unhealthy and unresourceful actions and behaviors and habits. But mate, I know it wasn't always like this for yourself, and tell me a little bit about what got you to this point, going back maybe beyond the 15 years ago, and the struggles that you personally went through and actually more, what I'd really like to hear about really is that transition from boyhood to manhood for yourself, because I know that was a wishy-washy kind of one for myself, and it isn't very clear in especially in our society here in Australia. So I'd love to hear sort of your journey and some of the trials that you had to go through to really step up as a man and really find yourself in that space.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so it's really a 25-year adult journey that had its roots really in my childhood and teenage years, as it does for all of us. And so as we're growing up, the person that we look to the most for this idea of what it is to be a man is usually our father. And my father is really, I have so much respect for him. He's absolutely the epitome of what it means to be a family man and a leader within a family. And so I had a really healthy upbringing, which I'm really grateful for. Not all men can say that, but I had a really healthy upbringing, which I'm very grateful for. And then leading into teenage years, and this is now on me, right? So I had I had a healthy upbringing, and I had a really good role model as a father. But then, as going into teenage years, then I started to experience other things as we do as guys in our teenage years. And we start to experience girls, and we start to experience alcohol, and we do all this sort of stuff, right? And I went on a bit of a path of self-destruction, and that self-destruction was, I think if most guys are honest, I think we can all say that at some point in our teenage years into our early 20s, we're on a bit of a path of self-destruction surrounding girls and alcohol. Sometimes there's drugs involved and all that sort of stuff, right? And it's in those really formative teenage years when we're transitioning from teenagehood into adulthood, where we make choices that then start to affect us for the rest of our lives. And so that's what I did.
Definitely.
I made some, yeah,
Mine
I
was
made
a
some.
decade and a half, I think.
What was that? Sorry?
Mine was about a decade and a half. Hey, could you just hold the microphone up off your lapel a bit as well? It's just a bit scratchy.
Absolutely. How's that?
Beautiful.
Is that better? Cool. So for me, that extended from about the age of around 15 all the way through to about 25 or 26. That involved alcohol and all that sort of stuff. Plus there was, can you hear me?
Yeah, I've still got you.
Can you hear me, Ben? Oh, cool. Okay. And then I got myself unconsciously into a relationship who ended up becoming my wife. And then we had, so unconsciously normal. And then that lasted for around about 12 years or so, ended in divorce. And from my 32, I guess, 33 when we divorced, up until only about 4 years ago, there was just drama after drama after drama as a result of this. And, when we talk about the decisions that we make and what led us up to the point that we did, when I first started going through that sort of stuff, and we had relationship breakdown for the final sort of 4 or 5 years in separation, we had some relationship breakdown, and as normally happens. So that really, mate.
I'm just going to move because it is a bit choppy. So I'm going to see. Yeah, cool. You're a bit choppy on my end, so I'm just going to move to see if it changes it. Guess I got the ambience outside in the bush. Hold on. Let's see if it's a bit better out here. Living the country life. How's that? Is that? Yeah, I think that's a bit better now.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry about that.
Are we a bit better now? No, that's okay, man. All good, all good. So
much better.
Yeah, that brings us to around about 32 years. Put it in perspective for you. I'm now at 32. I call myself a victim, but definitely having an experience.
Michael?
And that was an ongoing thing for a few years. Yes, mate.
Shit. Michael, it's still choppy.
Okay, mate, just one moment. How's that? Do you reckon that's a little bit better?
So far, so good, yes.
Okay, cool. We'll see how we go. I've disconnected from the Wi-Fi, and I'm just using my phone now, so we'll see how we go. Yeah, cool. All right, no worries. So what did you sort of hear up until?
I reckon start again.
Start again. All right, cool. Okay,
well, just like we got, but it was just choppy. So I'm not sure how much everyone else saw or didn't, but like I know the story, so I could keep along with it, but I'm just not sure how much they would have picked up.
Okay. All right, no worries. All right, well, we'll go back to, I guess, 15 or so, which was quite a while ago now, eh? So about 15 years of age, and that was a period of time where I experienced, where I chose rebellion, and I chose all the unhealthy behaviours that a lot of us do in mid to late kind of teenage years. And that was all about, girls, alcohol, just unhealthy behaviours, right? And so what happened as a result of that is I lived very, very unconsciously for the next few years. And then I actually moved interstate as a result of this kind of mindset. Ended up marrying somebody very unconsciously had 2 kids with her, right?
When you say unconsciously, what do you mean by that? For those that don't really understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so when I say unconsciously, what I mean by that is I didn't actually make a conscious choice. There was no conscious awareness within me in regards to who I was, what I wanted out of life, who I wanted to be in a relationship with, and just anything in regards to any kind of level of self-awareness. There was just nothing there, right? Yeah. And so when I talk to people about making unconscious choices, it's really about unconsciously doing this stuff because you don't know any different, and you've really not built up a level of self-awareness to then go, okay, well, cool, this doesn't serve me, but that does. And so when I talk about unconscious, it's really about not being consciously aware of how you feel, your feelings, your thoughts, anything that you have, values and beliefs and paradigms within your subconscious mind as well. So there was none of that for me at that age at all. So I kind of just rode the wave and just went with it, as a lot of people do in life. And I didn't actually realize that I was doing that until I was about 32 or 33, when my ex-wife and I, so we divorced and we separated at that time when I was about 32 or 33. And then what ensued after that was just an absolute barrage of heartache and financial struggle and despair and depression for the next 2 or 3 years. Like the next couple of years, at least after that, there was an experience there of being alienated from my children. It really even got to a point where at one point I was even kind of suicidal as well. So that was really my emotional impact. Those couple of years was enough pain and enough heartache and enough, lack of self-awareness to really create enough emotional impact within me to then kind of say, I need to make changes. I've got to figure out what's going on here. What went wrong? Why did it go wrong? How can I make sure this doesn't happen again? And that started my journey. That was really, as a result, every experience leading up to that point was leading up to this massive emotional impact that I had, which then put me on the path that I'm on now. And so that's when I got my diploma as a counsellor. And then after I got my diploma, then I started practicing as a counsellor, and realised about 6 months into it, when people were coming to me for counselling, and this was men, I wanted to work with men specifically going through this sort of thing that I had been going through and still was to a certain point. And I had men coming to me, and we'd be all good. They'd go session by session. And I figured out what was about 3 months into this, I started realising that counselling actually wasn't working for people. And the reason why is because we were talking about thoughts and we were talking about feelings and we were trying to change behaviours. And I had the awareness that I had was that it wasn't working for the guys who were coming to see me, because they'd feel good after the first session. They'd feel then good, and they'd gotten it all off their chest, and they'd come back a week later and they go, Michael, I still feel shit. This just hasn't made a difference. I don't know what's going on. So we'd go through the same things and they'd be having the same difficulties, and similar things would be coming up for them. And this was happening on an ongoing basis. So I thought, this is not working. This counselling thing isn't working, and I actually want to serve people at a really high level. And so I thought, I'm going to stop this counselling thing for a little while, and I'm going to go off and I'm going to find out what the hell's going on and why I'm not helping people and why people are not getting value out of this. So then I went off and I learned about how the mind works, and I learned a lot about neuroscience and neuroplasticity and a little bit of other bits and pieces here and there. And I got qualified in NLP, And so I learned how the mind works. And when I started learning how the mind works, I then re-entered this field again as a coach.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a life
Yeah.
coach, but just as a coach, a men's coach. And then when we started to get into more about how the mind works and building levels of self-awareness and understanding what paradigms are and understanding how values and beliefs within the subconscious mind are formed and how they are formed at a very, very young age, and then we bring them into life with us and we start making choices as a result of these subconscious paradigms. And then we're getting these results that are undesirable, and we're wondering why we're getting the results we're getting. And so when I started working with men in that context, people started having transformations because they then started to understand not just why these subconscious paradigms and programs were there, but also how to figure out which ones were serving them and which ones weren't. And then moving on from that, when we started to figure that out, we started to go, okay, well, cool. This belief is serving me, so it can stay. This belief isn't serving me, so it's got to go and it's got to be replaced by something else. And so then we start the process of reprogramming. And then I found that this was actually working for people. Got a bit of background noise there, mate.
Yeah.
So then
got the bloody tractors going in the background or something.
Oh, cool. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not cool for a live, but cool. So then I started seeing guys actually have transformations. And when we start to really connect with what's in our subconscious mind, the beliefs and the values that are there, and we start to really understand which ones serve us and which ones don't, and then we start to change the ones that aren't serving us, we get much better results. And we get a higher level of self-awareness as well in regards to what we're thinking, how we're feeling, the behaviors. And this is where my work has led me. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working with guys and couples now for a long time, the last 10 years in this context. And when you start really getting into the subconscious and understanding how the subconscious mind works, you can start to help people have transformations. And so what used to be a journey for people over, and it still is when people see counselors and psychologists, it can be a journey for them over 6, 12 months. I was talking to somebody the other day who's been seeing a psychologist for 18 months. And to me... I
hear it all the time.
Yeah, and to me, that's not serving you. I'm sorry, that's not serving you. It just isn't.
Not efficient.
Because, no. And what I've developed now is I've developed a bit of a system. So people see me and they see me for about 3 months. And at the end of that 3-month period, they have experienced the transformation within themselves that they wanted. And they've realized a whole heap more potential than what they realized they had. Their results have changed as a result of the fact that they've transformed and transformed their own mind. They've literally transformed their own mind. And so this is what led me into what I'm doing now, because I thought, God, wow, if I can help people at this level and people are getting these kinds of transformations, maybe I can help men to start to come to the awarenesses of, who they are. Like, what does it actually mean to be a man these days? And I've seen people out there, the Me Too movement. I've seen, we talked a lot about the Gillette ad a little while ago.
What's the Me Too movement? I'm not familiar.
Oh, the Me Too movement is really about building awareness for around, I think it was more in the context of sexual harassment in the workplace and women being the ultimate victims of this sexual harassment. And whilst that's a great initiative, it's not cool for women to be sexually harassed in any environment whatsoever, work or otherwise. But like we're experiencing now in this third and going into fourth wave of feminism, the Me Too movement has evolved into something that it never really was designed to do. And now we've gotten, thanks Samantha, sexual harassment in the workplace. And now we've gotten to a place where the Me Too movement has evolved into something that I believe is very unhealthy. Not to do with preventing sexual harassment towards women, but it's definitely gotten to a point where now men even feel hesitant approaching a woman in public because of the potential repercussions of that. And so when you,
Yeah.
how can, what was that? Oh, we do know about me too, Lydia. Thank you. So all good. And so when you then, that's cool. So when you couple that with toxic masculinity, which we've seen all over social media recently, it just creates this environment for men who then kind of feel very, very uncertain and inadequate, et cetera, in regards to, wow, in regards to what it means to be a man in society these days. And this is what's led me to this point, to help men really forge what it means to be a man. And this is why, this is why I do what I do.
I love that I've got an opportunity to chat to you, Michael, because one of the things that has come up a lot, especially in the coaching space, and just the mental health space in general, is that amount of time that people do spend seeing counsellors and psychiatrists and psychologists. And I've been through the ringer as well in that form. And I could never really speak from the perspective of someone that actually is a practitioner that has been trained up and has gone through it. I could only speak to it from the position of what I'd experienced from receiving it. And then what I know, like you said, like understanding the brain and the subconscious and that capacity to actually create transformations, new belief systems and eliminating old unsupportive ones. But my understanding was that it's a great tool to offload and to let go and to share grievances and to share your story with someone else, and that is therapeutic in itself to a point. But beyond that, my understanding was there really wasn't much more therapeutic benefit to that other than the letting it go process, which is only temporary anyway. But is that what you'd subscribe? Could you fill in the gaps there, or could you sort of go deeper on the differences? And
yeah, absolutely. So basically, from a counselling perspective, when we talk about this in the context of counselling, I believe is great for someone who wants to relieve the mind. So when we're talking about relieving the conscious mind of all of those thoughts and feelings that can really occupy our mind from time to time, it's the stuff that people lose sleep over. So from that perspective, counselling is great. Counselling is really good. It's good for talk therapy, right? And so it helps people feel better about the fact that they've shared an experience and they've told somebody else about the fact that they are suffering or they're in suffering and they're in overwhelm or they're feeling whatever it is that they're feeling, and which is usually undesirable. Beyond that, counselling doesn't do what people actually go to counsellors for. And people go to counsellors to resolve stuff. Sorry?
That's big. That's big news.
Yeah. Look, people go to counsellors to resolve stuff. And unfortunately, the process doesn't lend itself and is not conducive to solving things. It doesn't help people to create transformation. It helps them to get things off their chest, helps them to share feelings and thoughts, and perhaps come to better awarenesses surrounding behaviour. But if you don't address the subconscious patterns underneath all of that, you don't actually get the transformation to then affect the behaviour, all the thoughts, all the feelings.
Beautiful. Thanks, man. And let's move into what it does mean to be a man. We've had a couple of questions as well regarding that. So start by now, I guess, maybe your definition or how you can best eloquently articulate what it is to be a man and what we're really striving for in helping men transform from where they are to where they can potentially be.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so a lot of men these days just don't have the awareness surrounding this whole topic. And this is where I work with men to build that awareness, because what it really means to be a man these days, in any age really, is a matter of self-awareness. So there's that real need for men to be aware of their own thoughts, feelings, and behaviours, and where they come from. And this, I believe, is the biggest challenge that men face, because they're so fixated on achieving this level of success in our society these days that society tells us that we should be, and we have to be, because if we don't, then we're less than, or we're inadequate, or we're mediocre. It sets men up essentially not for success but failure, because most men don't get to that point, and then they feel worse about themselves. And then what happens? What happens? Here's the thing that happens, Matt, is that when men are on this journey of success, achieving success, they sacrifice things along the way. So when they get to a point where they're really, really starting to see results, when they get to a point where they're really, really starting to see results, what they do is they then become motivated to achieve at an even higher level. And then they sacrifice relationships, and relationships with their partners, relationship with their kids, relationships with friends, relationship to themselves, and they lose even more consciousness on this journey. And when I say they lose consciousness, Sorry?
Was that little pause there before you started saying this a bit of a reflection on your own story, or what was that little pause you had there?
Just a comment that I just saw come up on the feed. I think I might turn them off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I've turned the comments off. I'll look at them later. Okay, so
thanks for the feedback.
Yeah,
keep it coming.
Yeah, cool. So when we look at this in context and what it means to be a man, what it means to be a man is to develop a level of awareness, self-actualization, and observational awareness. Observational awareness of their own thought patterns, their own feelings, and their own behaviors, so then they can start to transform the ones that they know are not serving. Because we know what is healthy behavior and what is unhealthy behavior. We know what healthy thoughts are and healthy feelings and unhealthy ones. We actually know this stuff. There's enough out there in society, and if we've had a reasonably decent upbringing, or we've had some reasonably decent kind of role models in our world growing up, we do know the difference between what's cool and what isn't. And so it's about that. It's about having, well, it is, but a lot of people don't have the awareness to be able to have that common sense on a conscious level, right? Then there's also a matter. Yep, go for it.
Yeah, just on that as well. Like I know you are coaching mostly men in that space, but is it, as far as you can see, it's just a human thing right now, like where the majority of people are at, where a lot of men and women are at, or
Absolutely.
Is it? Yeah, cool. All right.
It's just humans. I mean, we're talking in the context of men, but definitely it is humankind. At this stage in our evolution, it is humankind. We've actually just lost the ability to be able to connect with ourselves on a very deep level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
And when we lose connection with ourselves at a deep level, we cannot connect with other humans on a healthy level.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So what sort of a role model are we trying to create, or are we trying to be for the future generations?
As men or as humans?
Yeah. As men. We'll stick with men.
As men. So men need to step up into more empowered places of respect. So number one is respect, okay? Self-awareness, respect, love, compassion, and those things are actually strengths within masculinity. When I say this stuff to guys, they go, "Oh, that's a little bit girly," and this I think is part of the issue, and that is that men don't attach these sorts of mindsets and these feelings and these emotions and these thought processes to masculinity. But when we look at what really is a true leader, what represents a true leader and a true man, and someone that is actually an empowered individual, is the ability to have compassion, but also the inner strength to be able to make good choices, not just for themselves, but for their family and their communities. So, I mean, we could go on all day talking about what it means to be a man, but these are the core fundamental things. It's really about compassion, respect, self-awareness. Yep, they're the three things that I believe. Having a sense of purpose in life, understanding your own mind, understanding who it is you are as a person, how you can contribute to our world, really, and more immediately your family at a really, really high level. And once you can do that, then you can start to behave, you will start to behave in different ways. It's just as simple as that.
What do you feel like most of the, or some of the main obstacles are for men these days in reaching that?
The journey towards success. I'm going to keep on coming back to that because it's this journey towards this illusionary concept of success that is sending men on a path that is incredibly unhealthy. Because it's not, when they go on this journey, they're looking for success instead of purpose, right? They're trying to create impact instead of engaging people. And they're trying to influence others instead of creating connection. And so when we look at those three sort of concepts of impact and influence and success, from my perspective, I have seen men suffer at the hands of these concepts more often than I've seen them thrive with those concepts.
Can they be met in a resourceful and in a healthy way?
The concepts of success?
Yeah.
Yeah, they certainly can if they are being met. But instead, instead of success, because success is very ego-driven. So when we talk about success, it's more about success of me as an individual, right? It's a success of the individual. And when we talk about success, that's attached to material wealth. It's attached to status, societal status, and material wealth. That's what our modern version of success is attached to. So when we start to realize that, we start to understand that they're all very ego-based, ego-driven concepts. And so when something is ego-driven, it's all about self. Yep, it's all about self-gratification. It's all about our ego. And there's no contribution in that. There's no engagement in that. There's no purpose in that. There's just the purpose of success. So the purpose is, I'm going to be successful.
Okay. And so what the alternative is, when you say the alternative is success in finding yourself and having a purpose, having that love and compassion and those relationships, what is it for you that, how do you define success for yourself now?
For me now,
material.
Yep. Yeah. For me now, it is all about contribution and helping men become better. It's as simple as that, right? There's nothing attached to this from an egotistical point of view. I'm not doing this because I want to feel some level of significance. It's got nothing to do with that. I've gone on this massive journey for the last 25 years of exactly what I want to help men and do help men create for themselves. And that really is a sense of purpose and passion and contribution. And so I would love for people to replace that word success with contribution. And I think if we can do that, men will simply be much healthier as individuals. Because you take away the focus from the self, and you place it outwards towards other people. And then you contribute to others and you contribute to community and family at a much higher level.
Yeah, it was Einstein, wasn't it, that said, be a man of service, not a man of success.
That's right.
He's a pretty smart fellow, I reckon.
Yeah. Look, if someone as smart as Einstein can get it, I don't know why it's so difficult for us to see these concepts. But the problem, the thing that I've noticed over the years is that we're so attached to money and we're so attached to material possessions. Not that there's anything wrong with money or material possessions, but when you attach yourself to them, it does warp. It really does warp the mind, and it starts to really call into question your motives. Yeah.
So, Lydia just said redefine success as contribution. I like that.
Yeah. That's essentially, if I could break this down into one sentence, everything that I'm doing right now is about redefine. Thank you, Lydia. I've turned the comments off because I didn't want to get distracted, but yeah, that's fantastic. That's perfect. Redefining success as contribution.
So what about that? Like, I recognized when I really started to get onto this bandwagon and on this train, and it was a massive mindset shift from like all the reasons and excuses, like, oh, when I've got enough for myself, then I'll contribute to others, or when I've got more money, then I'll be able to donate to places, or when I'm in a certain position, then I'll do this and that. So I remember feeling like I still needed to have a level of success in the material sense to be able to contribute in the contribution sense. I went on this journey of realizing, well, I've got lots of blood, so I'll just start giving that away. So I got blood. And then I realized, well, I've got a bit of free time, so I'll go give that away. And then with my dollars, it was hard. Like, it was like, I've got fuck all, but I've got some, which is more than the person that's got none. So I'll give some of that away. And then recognizing, I went through a process of setting up my private foundation and realizing that contribution doesn't mean, you know, feeding the hungry and curing AIDS and saving the whales, or volunteering at an old folks home, although all those things are great. But the single mum that is working at a hairdresser's on a Saturday morning is contributing to her local community and doing her bit to help out. The 16-year-old school kid who's stacking shelves at Woolworths on a Thursday night is contributing so the lawyers and the doctors can go and pick up their food the next day. Like, it's all a matter of contribution. And I even think that word contribution has a bit to be morphed into and redefined in itself as well.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you. And these are the beginning steps of starting to redefine what that actually means. And contribution is different to everybody, and is different for everybody because we're all different and we're all unique, and we can each contribute in very, very different ways. But would you agree that if all of us had this attitude of contribution instead of striving for success, then we would actually live in a much more healthy society?
I think it would transcend the need for currency.
Absolutely.
And money would be obsolete.
And just on something that you mentioned earlier, I've heard this so many times over the years, and that is, well, I need to make money. If I'm going to contribute to the world or society, I have to make money because then success, you know, money brings me success, or success brings me money, however they internalize that, and then I can contribute at a high level. The problem with that I've noticed is that it's on that journey that people lose the reason, the purpose. They may have started out with the best of intentions. But somewhere along the way, the money just becomes more desirable and the status just becomes more desirable. And this is, you know, you can even attribute this to politics. I have a strong belief that every politician, when they started out in politics, whenever that was, however many years ago, they started out with the absolute best of intentions to make a difference in their local community. But then when they get into Parliament, I think that all changes for some reason. And so this is what happens on the journey towards success. Start off with the best of intentions. I'm going to make so much money and create success and be significant, but then I can give to others. But the problem is they get that.
So continue.
No, that was okay. I was going to say the problem is they get to that point, but they've lost this really loving, beautiful intention somewhere along the way, as well as losing relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a little earlier on you touched on paradigms as well, and growing up with certain paradigms and certain values and belief systems, it needs a massive shift, like a massive massive shift to be going on within us to actually shift from the relationships that we attach money to. Like, how am I going to live, or how am I going to feed myself without money? How am I going to provide for a family if I'm not successful in making money? And so there's all these attachments that and relationships that we've put and attached to it. It's like, yeah, that's a great concept of contributing to everyone and everything, but until I can understand and see how that is actually going to provide for me and support my base sort of needs of survival as well, let alone reaching up to self-actualization and all the way through them. I find the most people that I speak to on this it's just so far removed from their actual reality that it's just like a wishy-washy concept almost.
Okay, interesting point you make. And yes, look, everyone wants and needs a roof over their head. Everyone wants and needs to be able to eat. Every man wants to provide for his family. Every woman wants to provide for their family. So I don't have an issue with money. I don't have an issue with making money, and I don't have an issue with people becoming wealthy. No issue with that at all. I think both of us here on this call, if we're being incredibly honest with each other and everybody watching and listening, there's a part of us that wants that too. Okay, there's a part of us that wants to be able to provide for our families at a very, very high level. Nothing wrong with that. So where's the distinction? Here's the question though that people have to ask themselves. Where's the distinction and where's the line between, am I doing this for money or am I doing this for a higher purpose? And whilst I'm doing this stuff, whilst I'm making these choices and thinking this way, am I doing so with a greater level of self-awareness to even know why I'm making the decision that I'm making? And so when you break all of this down, it's not about how much money you have, because I don't have an issue with money. I love money just as much as the next guy. But money is a resource. Money is a resource. It's as simple as that. Money is a tool. Money should be our slave instead of the opposite. But people lose themselves on this journey and they make themselves the slave to money. And as soon as you have that awareness, if you have that awareness, that's a really good opportunity to start shifting paradigms. So when you break all of this down, this is what I was going to say before, when you break all of this down, it comes to the very first step is about building a level of self-awareness surrounding purpose and contribution. And I hear what you say about it sounding wishy-washy, but everyone knows they've got that one thing that they can do for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end, that they love, they lose track of time, they forget to eat. Everyone's got that thing. That's your passion. That's your actual passion. That's what you're meant to be doing. That's how you can contribute at a really high level to the world. And so when you are able to have the self-awareness surrounding that, and you can step into that and create a purpose around that passion, you can then make a ridiculous amount of money and contribute. But at least you're doing it from a really, really loving, healthy place.
I love it. And that ties in with the daily B, like believing in yourself to start with, enough to let go of past paradigms, social stigmas, the thoughts and opinions and judgments of others, enough that you can then start to express yourself completely authentically and openly. And if you love painting Smurf figurines, or you love, making flower daisies, or you love painting sculptures, or you love being a lawyer or an accountant, like, you get the option to express yourself openly in that beautiful way and follow your passions, because essentially, as mum, because essentially,
hi mum.
Hey mumsy man. Because essentially that's how we do contribute. That's our contribution to the world, is our own creativity and unique spark and our light within ourselves. But I want to take this a level. I love this talk about the money. I want to go a little bit deeper. I've just been listening to the Hermetic principles and the universal laws, and I want to have a chat to you about these and how these really tie in, and how the impact that they've had on you. Because the first one I want to bring up is the law of polarity, which is, as much as we want to contribute, we've got to take to give. So there's a half truth in everything. So share a little bit about your relationship so far and the impact that the universal laws have had on you. And let's dive a little bit into these and maybe shed some light for some people that haven't even heard of them before, I'm sure.
So my relationship with the universal laws?
Yeah, the part that played in your life up to now.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I wasn't really aware of the fact that there were even universal laws in the first place until probably around about 5 to 6 years ago. And then I started really delving deep into this and understanding, learning more about what they are. And I reckon my favorite universal law is the law of vibration. So the law of vibration is said to be the primary universal law. And what that tells us is that when we vibrate at a certain frequency, we will attract everything at that frequency. So whether it's a low vibrational state or a high vibrational state, we will attract everything on that frequency. And this is where everybody knows about the law of attraction. So everybody's heard, you know, a lot of people have perhaps seen The Secret, which talks about the law of attraction. And the law of attraction says that you attract what it is that you focus on. So The Secret told us to focus on what we want for a period of time every day, and magically it will just appear. What The Secret missed was the fact that, and this is what I've learned, okay, is that the law of attraction is a secondary law. The primary law is the law of vibration. First, you need to vibrate at the frequency from a very, and you know, you're talking about wishy-washy, right? You got to vibrate at a frequency that will then attract what it is that you want towards you. And so when we talk about,
very literal.
Pardon?
This is all very literal, and that's the crazy thing, is that first time people hear these concepts, it does sound wishy-washy as well. And I was playing devil's advocate before in what we're saying about that, because again, yeah, this stuff is pretty heavy, and it sounds like it's just sort of woo-woo or spiritual dogmas, but it's literal. There's literal things we're talking about right now.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And if we take this down a little bit and we start to think about what we're actually made up of physically, we're actually made up of, on an atomic level, literally atoms. And these atoms, scientifically this has been proven that on an atomic level we are vibrating, and this is what gives us the illusion of being solid. So you know, the phone that I'm looking at now, and the picture of you that I'm looking at, and the phone that you're looking at, when we start to say none of this is solid, the chair that you're sitting on is not solid. If the atoms on that chair stopped vibrating, it would literally disappear into nothingness, and you'd fall to the floor. So then that puts a different spin on reality, right? So when we understand that nothing's actually solid, and that every cell in our body on a molecular atomic level is vibrating at whatever frequency it needs to vibrate in order to create a solid mass, we then start to understand. And then we also know that thoughts influence physiology, right?
Well, thoughts are physical things as well.
Thoughts manifest physically, right? So thoughts, we know this stuff now because of neuroscience, and we know that thoughts, you know, we've heard thoughts are things, and thoughts are things, but before thoughts become things, there's a massive process between thoughts and things. I can't wait to read the comments in this thread, because you just keep on laughing and making all these faces.
It's great. They're all good.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's just these concepts as well. Like I know what it was like for me the first time they were explained to me, and it was just like penny drop after penny drop, like mind blow after mind blow. And I can just imagine what some people are just sitting back at home thinking, what the fuck is going on?
What the hell are these two guys talking about? I thought they were going to talk about masculinity and men, and now they're talking about how I don't even exist. I'm just vibrating at some frequency that makes it look like I'm here.
That's it. Yeah, my one's the favorite. One of my favorite ones is the universal law of perpetual transmutation of energy, which is basically that is like you take that law of vibration and you recognize that something else is vibrating at a different frequency, and you're able to transmute your energy or the frequency of which you're vibrating to match that of something else in order to use the law of attraction and attract that in. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and then even further to that, the law of transmutation says to us, as it does with other laws as well, it says things like everything is energy. And Nikola Tesla said this, right? He said, think of everything in energy, vibration, and frequency, and then you understand how the universe works, right? So that tells us that everything's energy. So if everything's energy and nothing can be destroyed, then we go into different realms, don't we? What is death? It's just the cessation of the physical body actually working. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And so that gives a new meaning to death then.
Yeah, well, it eliminates the old meaning of death.
Certainly does.
So bringing it back to a bit more of a tangible sort of space, and where men are at, and where a lot of the sort of mental health issues are, and the challenges we're facing with this need for success and this unhealthy drive to push for material wealth. And actually, I'll just touch on like a couple of things that have come out in the AFL news recently. Is the Brownlow medalist from 2017, Dustin Martin, just came out saying he reached all of his dreams, and then he found himself in depression and anxiety because he was just empty inside and didn't realize what was going on. So there's a map of consciousness which essentially maps out the levels of our emotions and the vibrations at which we're sort of vibrating at. And when people are at that sort of fear or egoic or depressed sort of vibration, it's not about jumping in and chucking me in front of a clown and trying to get them to be elated straight away, but it's about sort of working with where we're at our default and sort of help me fill in the gaps here where I might be missing some. But essentially getting from, if we're at a depressed vibration, working at getting to fear, from fear to anxiety, or whatever the next step is up, one at a time, which is a massive shift in itself, and gradually pull ourselves up out of that space and into that vortex of upward spiraling. So, yeah, I mean, is that sort of along the lines of what you subscribe to? Is there some gaps that you can fill in there? And how do you specifically go about helping men go from a place of lack or sort of immaturity, maybe for lack of a better term, and really get them to start becoming conscious and taking responsibility for what's going on, for the way that they're vibrating?
Yeah, cool. So the first thing I do with everyone is we do a bit of a audit, I guess, a life audit. And this is a real foundational thing that I do with men when we first start. So it's a bit of an audit of your results. So your results will always give you an indication of where your thoughts are, where your feelings are, where your behavior is, and also where your paradigms are sitting as well, right? So you always look at your results. The results are the outcome of everything else. So everything from the internal is now external. You look at your results and you go, okay, where am I getting results that I'm happy with? Where am I getting results that I'm not? Yep.
Yeah.
Foundational stuff. And it's real practical, you know, in the trenches stuff as well. It's stuff that you write down on paper. So it's not, you know, or type in a Word document or something. It's not esoteric woo-woo. It's actually real, you know, in the trenches stuff where we start to look at real results. And you go, where is this serving you? Where are your results serving you and where are they not? And when we start to build some awareness around the results that are not working, then we start to backtrack. And it's about, you know, Steve Jobs said it's about connecting the dots backwards. That's what we do in this process. So the process is about connecting the dots backwards. As much as this is an internal journey, the reality is that you've got to look at your external results because they will be a direct relation to it's feedback. Results are feedback. So if you look at the feedback you're getting, which is your results, then you know exactly, then you can connect the dots backwards to the source of those results. And that always is somewhere within our subconscious mind, always.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. So looking forwards, man, what's the sort of the big dream? What's the big goal and the big vision for that you're sort of striving towards in your coaching and in your life?
Yeah, in life, like coaching is just a small part of life, right? So in my life, I really want to encourage engagement with as many men as possible I can possibly touch to transform.
Just not in the workplace.
In a respectful place, in respectful places, yes. So let's say engage as many men. We'll just leave it at that, right? Instead of touching. So engage as many men as possible to make that to at least be willing to make that paradigm shift from being success driven to purpose and contribution driven, right? And I think, and I believe if we can do that, and if I can do that combined with other people to engage and encourage millions of men across the world to do that, there's no need then for Me Too movements. There's no need for feminism. There's no need for toxic masculinity, talk of toxic masculinity, because it won't even be there. There's no need for any of that stuff, because all of a sudden you've built a generation of men who have purpose and contribution, and they do that from a really deep place and a really high level.
Beautiful.
And that's how we create magnificent leaders with men and women too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is there, you got a book coming out as well we spoke about?
Got a book coming out for men called Forging Excalibur. I'm very excited. Release date is the 1st of May. So I better pull my finger out and get that.
Can you give us a bit of a loop, like a bit of a rundown about what to expect and what's in there and what people get from it?
Yeah, cool. So what are we doing in the initial parts of the book, or what I have done in the initial parts of the book, is really build a bit of a story around the purpose of the book and the journey that men will go on from chapter 1 all the way through to the end, and how that's going to look for them, and why I've called it Forging Excalibur, and how the forging process of a sword is very much akin to the forging process of a boy turning into a man and then discovering his purpose and his passion, and then ultimately contributing to his community. And so the whole book is going to be filled with, insights and my own awarenesses and my own insights and my own learnings surrounding what I've discovered over the last 25 years, and how I believe this shift from being success-driven into being purpose and contribution-driven can actually start to make have a really positive influence on our society.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. Well, share the link in here, share the link with me when it's out, and we'll do our best to get it out so people can, have an opportunity to jump on board and absorb that knowledge and wisdom as well. Cool.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it, mate.
Absolutely, man. Where can people best connect with you and
Cool. They can find me on Facebook just under my name, Michael Lauria, Lauria. I'm tagged in here anyway, aren't I? I run a men's group on Facebook too called The Man Space. So if there are any guys watching here that would like to be part of a really empowered, just awesome group with awesome guys in there, it's called The Man Space. I've got a Facebook page as well for my coaching, which is just my name as well, Michael Lauria. And if they do that, they can find me anywhere on social media. I'm quite transparent. I'm all out there everywhere, so everyone can find me if they really want to.
Lovely. I love it. And mate, any final words of wisdom or bits of inspiration that's coming to you that you'd like to impart on everyone before we go?
Final words. So for any guys out there who have listened or are listening or will listen when this goes on Facebook later, I would encourage you to have a look at the results you're getting in life, not just from a monetary perspective or societal status, but what I want you to do is look deeper than that. I want you to look at your relationships. I want you to look at yourself as well. And I want you to really check out your results. Do a bit of an audit. We all know what an audit is. So do an audit on your results. And are the results that you're getting serving you on every level? Right? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, are your results serving you on every level? And if they're not, then it's time to make a change, or at least time to bring awareness to the results that are not serving you, and then figure out how you can change them into ones that do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, brother. Lovely to connect with you, and really awesome to sort of get your perspective on a lot of things, and share this space as well. I really appreciate it.
Same here, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another amazing guest, and I will speak to you guys soon. Enjoy your day. Michael, look forward to catching up soon, brother.
Cool, man. Thanks, mate. See you, mate.
Later.